I'm going to be interviewing Carl Roof on his craziest SEO experiments, including his philosophy on the future of AI and SEO, plus what he expects Google to do about it, what he thinks about the controversial case studies we've run on my YouTube channel, plus how he's ranked before with 20,000 backlinks and also no-follow links. Plus, I'll be giving away several SEO SOPs for experiments and testing based on the conversation today, and a free custom trained chat GPT, as you can see here. So if you have more questions about SEO, you can ask the AI that's trained on the transcript from today. I learned a ton from this interview. These are very actionable SEO strategies, and let's get into it. So what are the craziest SEO experiments you've done?
The craziest ones? It's kind of like, I don't know if what I consider crazy is what other people consider crazy. There are some things that I've done though. Ranking blank pages has always been fun. That usually gets a rise out of people. I had a page and I sent 20,000 Fiverr links, and the anchor text on all of it was, "This link has been purchased." No penalty, no penalty. Getting a penalty is really hard when you want to get a penalty. I have tried on numerous occasions to get penalties, and it's been very, very difficult to actually get one to go.
This is something that I've been wondering about. It's like we do these crazy experiments. Obviously, I tell people it's a risk. This is just for fun. We just want to see what happens. But I've always wondered, okay, for example, the main case study website, Chipper Birds, would that receive a manual action penalty for publishing so much content at so much scale?
I don't think you can get a penalty for publishing, like just because you're doing a lot of work. I don't think you can get punished. But are you thinking like, would you become a target for something by publishing case studies? Is that what
Absolutely.
you're trying? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would like to believe no, but I do have the one situation where I was definitely punitively targeted by Google. And that was just evidenced in them going after my test sites after I talked about something that I did and how I learned how to do it. They went and took down, I think, the sites that they felt contributed to my knowledge, but they never touched an agency site or my software site or anything like that. So maybe if there's punitive action, they're only going to go so far in that, but they might not go after something that could actually damage your livelihood.
Do you think there's
Uh,
anything you do need to be careful about if you're doing these experiments publicly?
don't do it on a site you care about. There are two different types of sites that I like to use. One would be just a brand new, fresh domain, and you can do anything to that. But something else, and more recently that I like to do is $20 auction site that used to be something, because I find that those sites index a lot faster. Google shows them a lot more love, and you can kind of get, especially if you want to do something a little more case study-y, a little more realistic look, maybe at a particular niche. You've got a whole series of plumbing sites and you want to do something. I think it's a great idea to go find an expired plumbing site and put that up, and allows you to look at things. What I think could happen is as you publish those things, people can find those sites. I'd be more worried about bad actors trying to do something rather than Google trying to come in and do something.
I don't know if you've seen this, but we have a birds website, chipperbirds.com, published like 6,000 articles using AI in the space of a few hours collectively. And the amount of birds websites that popped up this year is absolutely crazy. But I totally expected that. Like, it's going to happen, right?
Do you think that's so? It's like people just seeing what you're doing and deciding to copy it, or do you think they're scraping and just putting it up?
No, it's just copying. And it's very easy to copy, right? Because I think even ZimWriter, they have this penny arcade feature where you just drop in the URL and then it basically rewrites all the content using AI.
That's fun.
It's amazing.
That just reminded me. I think we promised not to talk about this, but in the lorem ipsum thing, one thing that I found is somebody actually completely copied the site and put it up themselves. And what was great is they didn't even get the URLs, because when I took the site down, the URLs broke on their site. They were just referencing back to the URLs from the lorem, from the original Rhinoplasty site. And I have to say, it's still ranking number one today. Their site is.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
you're saying the lorem ipsum industry is getting very competitive.
There are people going after that niche. They're definitely there.
Just to recap, if anyone is unfamiliar, Carl Roof ranked multiple websites using the placeholder text lorem ipsum, right? So no real content, just lorem ipsum.
Yeah, exactly. And they all went to page one, and most went to number one.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned with these SEO tests that you do, these crazy experiments, your mindset is almost like you want to be proven wrong, right?
Mhm.
You kind of
Right.
approach it like a scientist.
Yeah, if you're in the pursuit of truth, you have to be willing to be incorrect and to be shown that you're incorrect. And if you're unwilling to accept that, you're no longer in the honest pursuit of truth, you're defending dogma. And if you're defending dogma, that isn't anything that can remotely be seen as scientific or the pursuit of knowledge. You're just defending a position at that point. I mean, it's human nature to want to be correct, and that's why science or scientific approach to anything is difficult and not easy to do. But if you can set that aside for a minute, and obviously you're allowed to defend your positions, but so long as you have some data to back that up, as soon as you do not, then you're really drifting towards dogma, and that's a place that I try to avoid.
This is an interesting one because I think there's a tiny percentage of people who maybe see some of these case studies sites and they don't do so well sometimes. And I
Mhm.
think that's a great sign of a test. If the site doesn't do well, that's okay. Like I've just been proven wrong that it doesn't work. But I think some people are like, oh, that site didn't rank, Julian. You're not as good an SEO as you think. And I think it's totally the opposite. It's like if you get proven wrong, great, I've learned something now.
That somebody who's going to say that to you also really doesn't have the proper idea of what we're trying to do. SEO isn't a game of certainty in that you will be 100% right if you do these things. It's a game of probability. You have to find the things that are most likely to be successful, understanding that they will not be successful every time. And then the way to become an expert in SEO is to be more right than your competitors and understanding that no one is ever going to be 100% correct. Yeah, but if you can probably shift up into like a 60 to 70% correct, you're expert level SEO. And a lot of people don't understand that. You can do the thing that is correct, and sometimes it just won't work because the probability that's factored in to what we do. The pursuit of becoming a good SEO or an expert level SEO is finding those things that you know work the majority of the time. Because if they work in that 60, 70%, you're going to beat your competitors. They're probably right in the neighborhood of 30 to 50% at best.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're playing the probabilities in your favor, but at the end of the day, you can't log into Google and rank your website number one.
The best poker players still lose, because there is the chance element that is kind of built into what we're doing. There are things that are outside of your control, just in general, and then kind of how the algorithm works in certain scenarios. There are things that you cannot factor for. And as a result, you can do it the correct way, the way that will be correct more often than not, but it will still be wrong sometimes.
When your sites got hit, for example, taken down by Google, was there any backlash in terms of people trying to call you out on it because your sites were taken down? Maybe some people tried to call you a black hat, even though I would say you're very white hat in the way that you,
I get called a black hat all the time, and it
yeah,
blows
yeah.
my mind. I tell people, no, like just because I test I'm looking for knowledge. I'm looking to figure out how this works. I would never advocate trying to rank a blank page. That's cloaking. That's what you're doing is cloaking, and it's definitely a violation. You need to know how the algorithm works because then when you see things, you have a framework for, okay, I get why this might be happening because I've done these things over here. I mean, that's the whole pursuit of doing that. But yeah, people definitely think I'm black hat when I am not a black hat SEO. I'm the farthest thing from it. When it comes to implementing things, I'm extremely risk adverse, and I never try to get anywhere near the gray areas even of SEO when I'm implementing things. You got sidetracked though. What was the original question?
So when your sites were hit, was there any
Uh,
backlash or
oh,
any,
so
were you
the
out? Like,
back, yeah, the backlash wasn't. It was mainly that was a cute stunt and it can't work again. Was really or like a lot of people talk about that there was a lorem ipsum update, and so you couldn't rank pages in lorem ipsum anymore. And they use that as proof of like, see, your sites got hit because Google updated the algorithm and you can't do this anymore. The other backlash I got was, okay, that worked in this one scenario, but it can't work in all these other scenarios, or you've only found something that's applicable in this one case and it can't be extrapolated across, any other niches or any other geolocations, et cetera, et cetera. That was kind of the biggest thing was like, you got lucky on this one thing. Good on you. That was cute. And now it can't work anymore.
what AI experiments would you like to see or you'd like to test?
I've not personally done too much with it yet because I'm not convinced that this is going to be the technology that we're going to be using next year. Even I see what we have right now is a very short shelf life type technology. I think better technologies will come along because right now, really, there's nothing AI about this. They just put the name AI on it and are just calling it that, and it isn't creating anything. We haven't had the singularity yet, so it's not, it's not, doing stuff on its own. Really, right now, it's a parlor trick. It's a glorified article spinner from 2012. Now it is a really good one, and it's really fun to play with. Don't get me wrong, but that's really what it is. It's guessing at the words that it should come next. It isn't going out looking for information. It's not processing anything. It's not creative. It's not making any kind of steps forward. It's giving you what it thinks you want and in very broad generalities because it can't get very specific on anything because it doesn't know anything. So I haven't done too much with AI. What I would like to play with though is finding maybe where it is seen as duplicate content. That's where I think Google's going to handle AI content in now and kind of going forward until something else comes along is that this, because it's spun content, it is duplicate. It isn't adding anything new to the conversation. And as such, that violates Google's guidelines or at a minimum, it violates their preference. And I think once they identify they're using pure spun content, they're going to treat it as they did with all the sites like the mass page builders from several years ago. They were just using article spinners. What happens is Google would just discount the sites. So it wouldn't like give them a penalty necessarily. It would just stop crawling them or so severely reduce the crawl rate. It wasn't a viable economic process to spin up these sites and do that because Google eventually, like the money it would take to do and the time and effort weren't worth Google finally just rejecting it and then probably banning your AdSense accounts at the end of it. And that's I think they're going to approach it in kind of a crawl rate and then taking down accounts that have been making ad revenue would be probably how they're going to make it. So it's just not an economically feasible method to create websites and get content out there.
That's fascinating. Yeah. I mean, for example, for our own agency, even though we do all these AI experiments and the fun, we still only sell human written
Yeah.
content to our clients because we're like, we don't know what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
Google might accept AI content right now, but that could change any minute, any day. You just never know.
And they don't have to tell you and they don't have to give any warning on it. They could just one day just decide we don't like this. And, they pull a lever and then the next thing you know, all the sites that had that are just gone.
One of the things I was speaking to James Dooley about this, and one of the things we were wondering was like ChatGPT, it tends to hallucinate statistics and facts, right? So if Google could come along and just fact check most of the content, and I don't know if it could because potentially that could be very expensive, but
Yeah.
if you fact check the content, then that's an easy way to filter through, okay, a lot of these sites are either factually wrong or they're AI written because they're factually wrong.
Yeah, I've seen, I think it was Gail from Authority Hackers showed me. He's like, put it in and ask for a search volume. Put in a bunch of keywords and say, I like the search volume for these keywords. It'll give you search volume. It'll even put it in a table for you. It is not true.
So confident about it though.
Very confident. You can even ask it, are these numbers correct? Like, yeah, absolutely. And you can ask it like where you get, I haven't done this, but I'm sure you could ask it where it got it. And it's going to tell you some sources. It's going to tell you where you got there. It didn't get the information. It doesn't have an account. It's not logging in.
It's
It's not
not,
logging.
it's just putting his finger in the air, right? And just saying,
Yeah. It's not logging in and saying like, I'm going to run these for you real quick. It's not even putting its finger in the air. It's just making up numbers. It's not even giving you a guess. It's just, these are just numbers.
so if that's the case, let's say content gets penalized if it's written by AI in the future. It'd be interesting to see what happens to content agencies because there's so many content agencies I know that took a big hit this year, but potentially that could all change, right? So it could just be one bad year for them.
Yeah, that's true. I think the agencies that are definitely on the lower end of pricing are the ones probably that were hit the most. And there might not be recovery for that. The low end costs, that 2 cent a word, 3 cent a word, even 4 or 5 cent a word type content might be gone because you can't get such a good first draft anyway, and then you could come in with a human editor and take that draft and make it unique, and pass all the things that would be just fine. So that you edit for like brand and tone, voice, facts, and uniqueness. And if you get good edits on that, I don't personally see too much difference in using AI for that. And then also maybe using a writer that you're only paying, $8 an hour or less to get a whole bunch of content done and then having somebody else come in and edit it. Maybe having somebody that isn't a native speaker, but a strong speaker in a particular language doing a first draft. And then you have somebody that is the native speaker come in and edit. I don't see too much difference in that than using AI for that kind of same purpose to get kind of that first draft. So the low end content agencies or low price content agencies, I think are going to be in trouble, even if Google decides they don't like AI content anymore. So I would, if that was the industry, like I was just about to put down the deposit on the office for my new budget content agency, I might pull back.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I think that's the case. Is like AI can actually be quite useful for example, creating a content outline, but you have to chisel it down like a
Yeah,
sculptor. You get a
for
big
sure.
block. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What about your link building experiments? I know that you've ranked with Nofollow backlinks before, right?
Yeah. And we did this recently, but I also did it way back in the day, when, some talking head publishes something about how this doesn't work. Like, well, Google said it doesn't work, so it doesn't work. And I was like, well, why don't you try it? That's the thing that blows my mind on all those things. Anytime somebody says like, well, Google said this and then this expert said that and it feels right is kind of the argument. If you read those things, that's what Google has told us this. This expert has said that over here on Twitter. And then it just feels good to me. So this is what it is. And never once did they say like, they didn't even have to say I tested it, but they never say I tested it, but it's like, this is what I did. Because at the end of the day, if you're showing something that you did, it may or may not be right, but it does show some insight into how something might work. It also gives us a frame point where like, okay, you did that. That's cool. It happened here. I did this. Maybe we can find differences in what we did, commonalities, et cetera, et cetera. So way back in the day, I tested Nofollow links, played with them a lot, and they totally passed juice. It wasn't an issue at all. And then I was approached by Chris Pantelli from Linkify. He wanted to, because he does a lot of horror links. You do horror links? That's one of your,
Back in the day, we don't do it anymore
okay.
for multiple reasons.
Yeah, it's kind of time consuming, right?
These links that you get as well, they're often very generic. So, for example, a lot of our
Yeah,
clients, they want very relevant backlinks and they want them fast. Like
sure.
the pressure to build backlinks and the deadlines that you have to meet
And
is
Haro's not going to be that
crazy.
spot.
And
Yeah.
Arrow is like, it might take 90 days. It might take, we stopped doing backlinks with Arrow 12 months ago for my own personal website. A couple of weeks ago, we got a DR93 just come through from Arrow.
You got to play the long game. And that's never going to work in an industry that is pushing people to do things faster. But he came because they do horror links. That is part of one of the packages they offer. But the resistance they've been getting was that, oh, yeah, you got that link for me, but it's a no follow link. And even though it's on a DR, pick your high number, that can't be valuable because Google said no follow doesn't pass juice. And also in 2020, Google revamped their guidelines. And they said that before they were talking about that no follow wouldn't even help with indexing. And then they revamped that in 2020 to say that no follows might pass a hint to Google. And they just kind of left it at that. And they didn't really explain what that meant. And they let SEOs run wild with what SEOs thought that meant. And so I decided to retest this. And also then Chris has a vested interest in showing that these are valuable links. But what was interesting is that as we started testing it and playing with it, I was doing what I did before where I was just sending no follow links from one test site to another test site. And these are very low traffic type sites because they're ranking for nonsense or they're not ranking for anything. They exist, but there's not a lot going on with them. And we couldn't get the pages to move. So then what we ended up doing is Chris had a particular site that had a page with traffic and we put a niche edit on there, essentially, adding a link to the top. It is a no follow link and it passed juice immediately. And what we were able to determine kind of running through this a couple more times and tweaking the tests a bit is that no follow will pass juice so long as that page is ranking organically for something and it's getting traffic. That seemed to be the real indicator, the tipping point. So if it's a brand new page, it's not ranking for anything, it's in some corner of the internet, that no follow link is probably going to do nothing for you. That link is probably going to do very little for you anyway. But really for the threshold for the no follow to do something, if the page is ranking and it is getting traffic and organic traffic, that'll definitely pass juice and it probably passes its full weight of whatever that might be for a backlink.
If you wanted to create an experiment like that, where you're like, right, okay, I want to test Carl's theory on whether no follow backlinks rank or not, how would you set up a website to do that? Like, do you have multiple pages, same content, same URLs, etc.? How does that work?
Yeah.
Not saying
Yeah. So yeah, but all you have to do to make that kind of consistent is you put your keyword as close next to the .com, if you will, and then dash random letters, dash random letters. So you do get unique URLs, but they're essentially the same URL because it's the target keyword is right next to .com. So you don't have any issues with placement. And then you're just doing random letters, the same amount of random letters, hyphenating it out. So it looks like a 3-word phrase. And then that's how you get unique URLs that are essentially the same URL. It's very, I say it's easy to do, but it is tedious, but just put 5 pages all going for the same term on one domain. And the pages are essentially identical. They're all targeting the same keyword. And then you let them index and then fire that no follow at the middle page and watch it. If it's under the conditions I was talking about, watch it go right up.
That's fascinating. So you can have the same content on each page?
Just about. So we do tweak it just a little bit I like to use English Ipsum when creating test pages. So those are the most common English words. And so there might be slight variations there. And that's a variable I'm willing to accept because I doubt that there is much there in terms of the order of the random words that are most common in the English language towards what you're trying to do.
We'll have to set up an SOP on the back of this video and I'll give it away for free at the end of this video.
Cool.
and what you recommend. Is there anything else that you need to consider when you're doing that?
If you do something to one, you have to do to all of them. And so let's say you search for the term and then you click on one because you need to look at something. You need to go back and click on all of them. Like, you try to keep whatever you did to one, you really need to do to the rest as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, so you just keep them all the same, that sort of thing. Are there any SEO testing tools you actually recommend?
Funny, yes, you say that. I was just on a call my last night with Nick Swan from SEO.com. Have you played with that before?
No, I've heard of it though.
I have seen the results of stuff, and it was a really fun walkthrough where he was showing kind of and I think this is the right way to think about it. Like, let's say somebody sees one of my tests, and my tests are done in a test environment. You can take that knowledge, and then you can implement it on a live site, and basically split test pages to see what actually works. And then you can actually kind of take this testing data that we do, implement it on a real world site, and then find the premium way to implement that. It's going to be most effective for your site. And I thought it was pretty slick. Yeah. So is SEOtesting.com, but you can do a variety of split test type things and like monitoring things over time. And it's basically going to tell you which is the best approach for your site. It's pretty cool.
That's perfect. That's what you want, isn't it?
Can I do a shameless plug?
Absolutely.
We're doing a collaboration with them because I like it this much. And if you're in IMG, you get 2 months free to run a test on it. And if you're on their side, they get it IMG as well. But if anybody submits a test for the next testing review, which is next month in about 5-6 weeks, they get free access to IMG if they submit a test. So we're looking for knowledge, and so if like people are involved in this, because I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I think we're gonna get a lot of practical information about like, under these conditions, I did this thing and this was the result. And I think we're gonna get a lot of great info.
Yeah, I think that's the amazing thing is, one thing I noticed about, for example, going to Chiang Mai in Thailand and meeting the first time I met you and Matt Dixie and everyone else was that everyone is very open to sharing knowledge.
Oh yeah.
There's
That
no
that's
secrets, right?
that's really what we're trying to build here, and what we're trying to foster and continue is the idea is that if you want to be in this community, we want you in this community, but it does require openness and transparency and abundance. The idea is that if I'm doing well and you're doing well, we're all doing well. And in order for us to do that, you have to be of the mindset that we can all do well together. And there's no reason to hold anything back or hide any secrets or anything like that.
Yeah,
People ask me questions. I give, but that's how you are. That's exactly how you are. And that's why you fit in so well to dinners when you come up here.
exactly. Yeah, I think for me, it's like, I'm just going to give away everything for free because if I don't, everyone else will anyway. But
Mm,
also, the more we can help each other, the more we can achieve something we couldn't do individually.
for sure.
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing. And for me, even if it's plugging like one of my biggest link building competitors, I don't care. Like, it's not a big deal. It's only
Yeah.
going to make me look better, right?
Matt plugs my tool. He invested in the competitor.
So, what are your thoughts on AI and SEO and the future of it? Say, not 6 months or 12 months ahead, but say 5 or 10 years. Do you think people will still use websites, for example?
Well, the experience I can draw from is, do you remember when voice search was going to kill everything?
Yeah. And
I remember going to every conference about 3-4 years ago, and like every conference had like 4 people doing a talk on voice search and how if you're not optimized for voice search, you're just going to get left behind. And then it turned out nobody uses voice search. People use voice search for, hey, Google, what's the weather today? And so I guess if you had a weather site, then you're in trouble. Or I think the second most common one is what's the time? And then the last one is play me the song. And that's exactly what people use voice search for.
the only
And
time I ever use voice search is because I have Alexa in the background. That's it.
we've got a little Google Play that I think we got given for free because we bought a toaster or something. And yeah, all we do is we ask it to play music.
It's that's it.
That's absolutely it. So I'm an old bunny and I don't get excited about a lot of things. And I also don't get nervous about a lot of things. And so when people are like, AI's got to do this, that, or the other, it's like, it could, maybe, but I'm betting on the under. I'm gonna guess it's not going to do. Just in the same way that in February of this year, people were jumping out of Windows because AI was going to change it all. And here we are filming in November, and somehow that hasn't happened yet. So I can't see 5 years out or 10 years out, but I have a hard time seeing websites not being involved in our lives. As long as there's an algorithm that's producing results to information that people are looking for, there will be SEO, because that's what SEO is. SEO is optimizing for an algorithm. It's optimizing for a search result. And so as long as that is still there, I think we'll all still have jobs, and I think we'll all be doing stuff on the web and WordPress will probably still be WordPress would be my guess.
I think a lot of people will be relieved to hear that because so many of us have been sucked into that AI bubble. It's moving so fast. Things are very scary. Nobody's going to have jobs anymore, sort of thing. And this is a very realistic take on it.
In the 10 years that I've been doing SEO, SEO has died every year. In fact, SEO has probably died every 6 months. Something has killed it. This is the end. It used to be so easy back in the day. Everyone says that. Oh man, it just used to be so easy to rank. They always say that. But in my experience in this industry is the more it changes, the more it stays the same. And I think we'll all be all right.
Yeah. One of the things I find with anything looking back is like the human brain has a tendency to filter out all the bad stuff, forget all the bad stuff, and then look at things through rose tinted glasses. And this is the same with SEO, business, making money online, even relationships and friendships. You forget all the bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say that your brain just lies to you.
Yeah.
Because your brain is always going to tell you, like, if you think if you're in a good spot, your brain's going to tell you how bad you're doing. And if you're in a bad spot, your brain's probably going to tell you you're all right. If you're in the middle of making a bad decision, your brain isn't going to help you too.
Yeah.
So don't trust your brain. Get some empirical data. Take a rational second to look at it.
So we're going to come on to some FAQs for you now, some general ones that we just got from the community. And one of the things I want to say is like, I have had more questions for you than anyone else we've ever had on the podcast. It's insane. So congrats on that.
I'm susceptible to flattery. So I'll say,
So number one, we'll cut through the BS and I'll get straight to it. So what mistakes do you think novice bloggers make and how do you correct them?
I don't know that there's a necessarily like a mistake that they make, but the mistakes that I see are the mistakes that even seasoned people make. And it's usually lack of organization, lack of processes. People worrying about SEO and doing SEO are two different things. And I find that people that are worrying about SEO really lack an organizational process to do SEO. And the reason like people chase shiny objects is because they don't have a 3-month plan. If you have at least a 1-month plan, you won't chase, but a 3-month plan is a better idea. You should map out right now what you're going to do for the next 3 months. And if you do that, you're going to be so much more productive. Your SEO is going to be, even if it's mediocre SEO, it's going to do so much better than great SEO that doesn't have this level of organization. So I would work on my processes. I would work on my organization and then grind on it. You have to just do it every day. It has to be in that process, that mindset of getting that information out, getting that stuff out and following and sticking to that plan. And then once you get through that 3 months, then do an evaluation on what worked, what appeared to not work, and then what you can tweak and then grab a new shiny object, plug it in, and in the next 3 months, try that.
Yeah, I think systems beat people every time, right?
All day, all day. That's a hard lesson to learn too, because creating those systems is so hard and so time consuming. But once you can get there, it's a much better place.
Definitely. Jeff asked, I'd love to hear what you think about my case studies. So all the crazy experiments we've done this year, have you had a chance to look at them? What do you think?
I have only had a passing look. My look has been like, I'm so glad you're doing it. And that's been my biggest takeaway is we need more of that. And as you know, people don't do it. Like, how many people do you know are like legitimately doing tests and case studies on a regular basis? I feel like 10, 20 of people you can consistently name that are putting things out. Not even 20, I don't think. I can't name. But that's why these things need to happen. And I think that's also why people like them so much is because they're just the consistency. Like something like put out a case study, and that's fine. Well, that's not fine. That's good. I didn't mean to dismiss that. But just the regular sticking to doing something to show how this is working or what your processes are or kind of where your mindset is at. And then we can all take a look at it. It's just a beautiful thing. So don't stop.
Yeah, 100%. I actually have a lot of fun just learning. Like usually if you see a video of me doing an experiment, like for example, creating custom GPTs and then ranking them number one for keywords anyway, then you're seeing me learning, but also getting my mind blown in the process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this is a very small thing. I was talking with our CTO and I was asked an SEO question. I was like, I'm not sure I've actually thought about this before. And she's like, well, of course, this is the process. Like we already have a process for it. She created it and we've already been doing it. And I was like, huh. I was like, was like, you're pretty good at SEO. And she's like, well, I learned from somebody that if you need to run tests on these things, and that's how I figured it out. And I was like, of course you did. Like, that's obviously, but like, it's so great. Like, if you're in those positions, like when those things come in, when you need to adapt or change, or how does it work in this scenario? If you have that kind of foundation for SEO that comes from that place of experimentation and discovery and a search for knowledge, you're in just a much better place.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And the thing is, it's not like the first experiment you're going to do is going to help you massively, but then you compound that and you do one every single week. And all of a sudden you're getting all these new ideas, you're building on
Oh
things
yeah,
you had before, and you're way more tuned in.
absolutely. Absolutely.
A niche and blog site still worth getting into.
So yeah, sure. There are a lot of good reasons to do it. I would just avoid being a pure affiliate site because Google has been hostile to affiliate sites for the last 6 years. Like, this isn't a mystery. Every update hits affiliate sites, and it's not because they're affiliate sites. It's because how affiliates run their affiliate sites, and that's contrary to how Google enjoys things. But yeah, everything's still very successful in terms of what type of site you want to do. I know lots of sites that are still successful in spite of helpful content, which that one was a bit of a bummer. But the note on that is hedge your bets, distribute your risk, mitigate risk. Having just one site in one niche and that's your sole source of income is problematic, regardless of what it is. Just having one source of income in anything is problematic. If you do a 9 to 5 job and your only source of income is that place, then you're at risk to what happens if the company closes, or what happens if the company moves, or what happens if they don't like you anymore. So, like, the more different income streams you can get, the more you have mitigated your risk. And it's essentially true, especially true online, that you can't just have one site, one type of site bringing in your sole source of income. So you can definitely do blog sites still. You can definitely do informational sites still. You can definitely do sites that are built for traffic and display ads. Absolutely. Or affiliate sites too. I just wouldn't have one as my sole source of income.
Yeah, I think the other thing is like if you build out a niche site, one of the biggest moats that you can build along with that is the branding, right? So
Yep.
for example, if you look at you or Matt DT, even like if you look at my website's traffic, since we've really focused on personal brand, all the signals that you get from that, the free backlinks,
Yep.
the mentions in PR, the traffic that you get from diversity, for example, for us, it's like we get traffic from Twitter, from YouTube, from Google, and everything is way more diverse because you're focusing on branding and building a real business, not just a crappy niche site that ranks number one for 1 or 2 terms.
Yeah. No, absolutely. One other thing that we did on the agency side of things, and this was an accident, was when we started, we said we had offices in Melbourne, Berlin, and Phoenix, or excuse me, San Francisco. And this is true because Andy was going back and forth between Melbourne and Berlin, and I was in San Francisco. So we had instantly had this multinational agency with, 2 people working, and we looked a lot sexier than we were. But then as we grew, we actually picked up clients in each of those places. And the reason I mentioned that is because when an economy dips, maybe in the US, it kind of goes up a little bit in Europe, or up a little bit in Australia. And then this goes down a little bit. And then you can kind of see these rising tides. And so there were times where we're just only picking up Australian clients and we can't find a US client to save our lives. Or like all of a sudden we're just nailing it in Germany for whatever reason, but we can't do anything in Australia. And what I realized is just economies shift a little bit globally, and we unintentionally mitigated risk, distributed our risk across vast geo areas just by setting up like, hey, yeah, we do take US clients and European clients and Australian clients, et cetera. And that distributed our risk so much without us realizing it. And it was a massive benefit to us, especially during COVID as well, as different places did better at different times. So any which way, so it's not just in maybe traffic sources, it's not just in revenue streams, but it can also be in geolocations as well, where you can really distribute risk and your sources of revenue.
Sounds good. Yeah. Quick question about your tool, Page Optimizer Pro, right? Someone asked about semantic SEO.
Mhm.
How do semantics and topical authority play a role in your content strategy when using Page Optimizer Pro?
So we have our own NLP library, and then we also use TF-IDF and a bag of words model to pull out contextual terms, or LSI, if you like that. LSI we've found is a ranking factor, or contextual terms are a ranking factor. We can't show that NLP terms are ranking factor. We also have access to Google's NLP API, and all plans can access that as well. to get basically what Google's API thinks of your page in terms of the entities that are on there and the category that it's in and the salience or how confident it is that it's within that category. So we can get all that information. I also can't tell you that that's a ranking factor either. But what I can tell you that I've seen is that if you're tuned into the correct category and you have a lot of the correct entities there, and it's not necessarily having the word on the page, but having the understanding of the concept, those pages do tend to index faster. So I think if when you get into the entity and semantics, or I want to say, I want to keep them separate. If you get into the entity stuff, that'll help you index faster. If you're getting into the contextual terms of semantics, the LSIs, if you will, that'll help you rank. It's not the biggest ranking factor, but it is certainly there. Maybe if you've got your keyword, you've got your variations of your keyword, and then you've got contextual terms probably in that order of importance.
Makes sense. I'm just conscious of time. Do you still have time to answer more questions?
Let's go. Let's do it. I got 20 minutes.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's rush through it. So, what's the most accurate tool to find keyword volumes that match your avalanche tier?
I have no idea. They all suck. I mean, they're all, I mean, I think how you should approach it is start with that chart, and that comes from Chris Carter. Start with that chart and then tweak it to as you learn. So that isn't the be all to end all. That's the beginning point. And then as you play with your data and as you work with it and as you run through it several times, tweak the chart to fit the data that you have and your particular situation. So I can't tell you if one's more accurate than the other. I don't think they are. Go with, set your benchmarks and then tweak the chart to suit where you're at. Don't go the other way.
With new sites, does content quality matter more or quantity?
The general heuristic is that you want to go narrow and deep rather than broad and thin. So using that kind of a concept, I think you might want to do slightly better than just getting it all out there would be a guess, because you're probably you could overshoot quickly. So I'd go within one category and I'd do it out and I'd probably take care of that content.
Yeah, so you focus on one sort of silo at a time and
Yeah.
then move to the next one.
That's right. That's right.
What backlinks work today? Link inserts,
all-
right? Because that's what I sell.
All of them do. That's it. I haven't. I was just talking to somebody that was showing me they're still using safe links, and they're using, if you know what safe links are, you know how gross those are, which you should never use them, by the way. But all backlinks still work. I imagine there's still like with the Nofollow type thing, that there are conditions perhaps that need to be met for the link to give you the most benefit or the most value. But otherwise, do them. And link inserts are excellent, aren't they? The page already exists. It's already getting traffic. So you're going to get value out of it from there. You can identify it and then get the link in there and bingo, bango, bongo.
Yeah, plus super scalable and
Yep.
relevant. Yeah. Can Google tell if you're writing for search or people first?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. How could they? Google's really powerful, but they cannot hear your thoughts yet. And so there's no
One
way
day.
for them. There's no way for them to know. Yeah, this kind of it's like the other side of the thing. Like you need to write for searcher intent. No, you don't. What is it? What does that even mean? Like all you need to do is search for the keyword you want to win. And then you look at the pages that Google is rewarding and there's the intent. There is no intent. It's what Google is showing you on page one. There's no search intent. It's just, these are the pages that Google is associating with that. Intent has nothing to do with it. Now you might extrapolate, well, Google is trying to show pages that the searcher wants, which is fine, but that has nothing to do with you as an SEO. You're not making up the intent. You don't have to get into the mind of the searcher and what do these people want. What it's saying, it's like this magical mystery of these people talking about what the intent and what's in the mind of them. Get lost. Search for it. Look on page one. There's your intent. It's the same kind of thing. Like Google has no idea why you're writing. It's also like the people that think that like Google read their content and is like, I am now a better person for have read this content. Like that isn't any part of the process. So no, Google can't tell if you're writing for people or for search engines. You're simply writing content. If that content is what Google is looking for, then you're going to do very well. If it's not, then that's when you run into problems.
It all comes down to reverse engineering, right?
Don't reinvent the wheel. Google shows what's there. Look at that, analyze why Google likes that, and then that's what you need to give to Google.
What SEO tricks work today or in 2024? Have you got some tricks?
All of them work.
Lorem ipsum, everything
all
you
of this.
possibly can. The title.
The whole thing. These are my words. Then this comes from a couple of years ago. from a very prominent SEO, and I won't say who it is because I don't want him to be on blast for this. But he made the observation that none of the original engineers at Google are there anymore. So none of the original engineers that were working on Google way back in the day, especially when they were really kicking stuff off and figuring things out, none of them are there anymore. And so what he said is, these new engineers are going through and they'll see the code and they'll see this like it looks like superfluous code. Like, what is this? Let's just take that out. It's not serving any purpose. Well, what it was doing, it was blocking some old school spam and they didn't realize that. And so then they remove that thing and all of a sudden the old school spam starts working again. That's why you see these things pop up every once in a while. It's because Google like streamlines something, but they don't really understand the original purpose, or perhaps they do understand the original purpose, but not the why behind it, like how this was actually making this thing block this spam. So what I've seen more and more in the last several years is what's old is new again in terms of old school spam works very, very well in all these new algorithms. And I think it's because they've streamlined things down, as that SEO had mentioned, to make it cleaner. But what that did is it just kind of opened up floodgates. So all the old stuff works. Most of the old stuff.
That's interesting. So obviously, there's been a lot of Google updates recently. A lot of people got hit by the helpful content update. Probably they're the most vocal, and that's why I think there's a lot. What steps would you suggest if your website got smashed up like a pancake to regain your traffic?
I have a couple thoughts. First of all, now I have seen some sites and then I've seen some sites where people are like, I was only using real content. I had real people. I did this. I did all this and I did all this correctly. And I would say of the 50 sites I've looked at, a little less, 35 sites I've looked at, I can say that's true about 3 of them. And so a lot of people want to tell you that they've done it right or they've done it correctly or they've done all these things and they really haven't. And so I've got like one thing I want to toss out because people like to claim like, well, I've got this and I've got that and I've got this and I've got that. And then we ask them to show you that it's not there. So a lot of people that are complaining about the helpful content, like, I don't understand why I was hit. I think they probably need to take a quick look in the mirror and they know why they were hit. But it's easy to blame something else rather than blaming the work that they did that was putting themselves at risk. So that's kind of my one. The other thing that I've seen is in the sites, a big chunk of the sites that I've seen that were hit were sites that had display ads on them. And what I have noticed is that the platforms they were using, all the big ones, said that the ad density, so the amount of space the ad is taking up, is under 30% to stay within whoever's guidelines. And one in particular wrote a whole post to their people that said, like, we are not even at 30%, we're at 28%. So you guys, it's clearly not that. And then I've got my friend who was hit and he's on their network and he's showing me screenshots from his mobile phone and the ad density is like 60, 70%. They actually have ads on top of ads. There's no way that's 28% coverage. I think a lot of these ad platforms lie is a strong word, but they have definitely misled in a way on what their ad density can actually get up to, and where it actually sits. And I think there's a good chance that this is more of like an interstitial ad situation where if you're blocking too much of the content, Google hates it. And you can see how if you're blocking too much of the content, that's not helpful. If you're looking at a screen and only 20% of that screen is actual text that the person wants to read and the rest is ads, I can see why Google's going to have some heartburn with that. And that's not offering a good experience. And the thing that's really frustrating for these people is that they kind of trusted these ad platforms and what they were saying. Of course, they know what they're doing and they're good. Why would they do anything? But what they're doing is they're just jamming as many ads as they possibly can because that's in their best benefit, right? So I would look at my ad density as a big thing. The other thing I've found I would look at is going into webpagetest.org, which is free. I have no affiliation with them. But look at your blocking time. Your blocking time is how much you can actually move the page around as things load, like how much it gets stuck. And in all the sites that I've seen, except for one that have been hit, they were all in the red on blocking time. And the other one was in like the bright orange, like almost red. So, and that seems to me it could kind of play in with the ads. And so maybe if you didn't have the ads, but your blocking time is miserable, maybe that's something that Google is using to say like, that's not helpful if they can't scroll, if the user can't get through your content. So those are the big things I would look at. But also I would take a deep breath and be like, oh, this helpful content. Are you sure? Let's take a look at your site. Let's see what you did first. And then we can say like, okay, let's check out the ad density here and let's check out the blocking time.
That is fascinating. So basically reduce the amount of ad coverage if you can.
Looks like it. And because I think you want to be under I don't know whose guideline this is, but it seems like the general rule is 30% or less ad coverage is appropriate, ad density is appropriate. And so I would actually really look at the coverage that you're getting. And I'd be very concerned if you haven't been hit yet and you have a lot of density.
Makes sense. Two more questions. And second to last one, how do you pick a niche?
I have no idea. Here's how I would do it. The people that I know that are really successful, it's like they weren't following their passion. Like I'm passionate about above ground pools. I don't know anybody but I know some people that are doing really well in the space. And a lot of those people, how they got there was that they found sites that were existing. They're already ranking for some terms and felt like, okay, this site's actually this old. It's ranking for these terms and I can see how I can improve it. And they've taken that site and gone on. So I think I would avoid starting anything from scratch, even if I cared about it. And I would look for an opportunity to buy a site that is at least 8 months old and is ranking for terms and it's proven that it can rank for terms in that niche. Then I would look at if that's the kind of thing you can sell or you can get ad traffic for it or whatever. And then I would go into it. So I would kind of, as a threshold, I'd set that it's an existing site that's ranking for something, that something has value. And I can also see I can take this site and grow it. That's how I would try to choose my niche. So I'd start hunting for buying opportunities rather than trying to specifically find a niche.
Makes sense. Definitely. And then final question, would you advise against setting up a niche website that covers multiple niches? So for example, and this is not my question, but from the audience, you got a website that's got business and then SEO and then lifestyle all on one site.
I think we touched on this just a little earlier. It seems like the right thing to do would be to build out one of those verticals first before going on to the others. You can become Amazon, but Amazon wasn't Amazon on day two, on day three. Like they slowly built out Amazon until it's the behemoth that it is, selling everything and doing everything. But it wasn't doing everything on day one. They were just books, and like that's what they started pretty narrow there. So that's an approach that I would take. You can get to all of those different things, even if they aren't terribly connected, so long as I think you've taken care of one first.
Yeah, so true. I think that people have a tendency to judge the success cases, but they ignore the ones that failed. And also they ignore the 5 or 10 or 20 years of work that happened before.
Oh, and also Amazon lost money for 10 years. So if you're prepared to lose money for 10 years on your project, you too can be successful. People also skip over that one real quick. That Amazon didn't make a dime for about a decade.
That's true. Definitely. So thanks so much for answering all the questions. What's the
Yeah.
best way to contact you or anything you want to plug?
KyleRoof.com is probably pretty easy. But yeah, Black Friday's coming up. So we've got deals. We've got deals.
You want us to put some codes in the comments or description? Happy to.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind pinging me, I'll get those to you today.
Let's do it. All right.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.
So thanks so much for watching. If you want access to the SOPs for SEO experiments and tests, plus access to this custom GPT, then you can get it inside my free AI SEO course. Just go to SEO systems and it's right down here in the SOPs with Kyle Roof and custom GPT section. There's a million other tutorials right here, not literally, but there's a lot of stuff in here that will help you. Links in the comments to the free course. If you want to book in a call about how to get more leads, traffic, and sales to your website, and basically how we take websites from 0 to 145,000 visitors per month and generate thousands of dollars in sales on autopilot without Facebook or Google ads, feel free to book in a call. Links in the comments as well. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.